part of one of the most confusing stages of healing is that moment when you're actually getting better, but you still feel nothing. Today, we're going to talk about why numbness doesn't always mean you're stuck and what it looks like when you find yourself in the quiet stage of healing. Stay tuned. Healing rarely looks the way we expect. Many of us imagine healing like a finish line. The pain goes away, the trauma stops affecting us, we finally feel normal again. But real healing is not linear. It tends to look more like waves or cycles, and periods of growth followed by periods of quiet. Sometimes healing actually opens deeper layers of work, which can feel like you're going backwards when you're actually just going deeper. When trauma and grief, loss, or prolonged stress, what we call allostatic overload, when those things overwhelm the nervous system, the brain begins to shift into either a shutdown state or even a freeze state. This can produce feelings of emotional numbness or feelings of disconnection. It can generate a difficulty in feeling joy or grief, or even feelings of being spiritually distant. But your nervous system is not broken, it's just protecting you. Essentially, sometimes the brain reduces emotional intensity until it believes it's safe enough to feel again. And healing is often invisible at first. One of the most frustrating parts of trauma recovery is that progress often happens before feelings begin to change. Now, signs of healing might include maybe you react slightly less intensely than you did before, or you find yourself recovering faster from stress. Maybe you have a increased capacity to sit with difficult emotions a little longer, or you find setting boundaries a little easier than you did before. These are nervous system changes, even if they don't feel dramatic yet. It's important to note that healing often shows up first as increased capacity, not increased emotion or increased emotional relief. What happens is this: you move from re experiencing the loss or the trauma to renegotiating what that means in your life. In in early trauma or grief recovery, memories can feel like you're constantly re-experiencing the event. Your body reacts as if the danger or stressor is happening again. But healing slowly shifts this dynamic over time. And so instead of re-experiencing, the brain begins renegotiating the memory. That means the memory still exists, but it no longer controls the nervous system the way it did before, and one gains more agency over how they respond then to that memory or triggers connected to that memory. The trauma or loss becomes part of a story instead of a driver in one's life. When someone is deeply wounded, healing often begins with tiny signals of life. Those might be enjoying a short walk or noticing beauty again, feeling safe with one particular person or a couple different people. It might include being able to focus on a book or an activity when it was difficult to focus or concentrate before. I think of it like a small flower pushing up through the snow. When a flower pushes through the snow, winter hasn't ended yet. The ground is still cold and the environment is still harsh, but the life inside that plant has already begun to grow. In the same way, in emotional or spiritual healing, growth often begins before relief is felt. Your nervous system may still feel numb or quiet or flat, but something underneath is already changing. It's already growing. These small signals of life are often the earliest signs that the nervous system is recovering. And remember, Healing happens in relationship. Yes, I mean our relationship with God our Father, but also in our relationship with others. Our culture often emphasizes self care, and that's important, but healing also requires safe connection. The nervous system heals best through safe relationships, being listened to without feeling like somebody's trying to fix you, or shared experiences of support. This is why therapy and community and compassionate relationships can be so powerful in the healing process. We are wired for connection. We thrive in safe connection, but we will strive without it. And I know this is a tough one. So many of you have been so genuinely hurt in your churches or in your communities, but I would encourage you to hang in there and find your people. Find people with whom you can safely share yourself without feeling judged or like people are trying to fix you, even if that just starts with a good Christian counselor. Be patient with yourself. Scripture reminds us that God often works in ways that feel slow or hidden. I think of Job sitting in his grief, and I wonder if he ever really understood on this side of eternity how God would use his story, how his story would be used to encourage thousands or tens of thousands of believers throughout history. And I think of Joseph waiting first in slavery and then in prison, wondering how God would work it all out. But Joseph knew he would. And of course, God did. Faith doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes faith simply looks like continuing to walk with God when emotions are quiet or numb. Remember, healing is not the absence of pain. Healing does not mean you will never feel pain again. And healing means your relationship to the pain actually changes. The memory might remain, triggers might still occur, but over time, you will gain more choice, more stability, more capacity to hold that experience without feeling overwhelmed. Healing is not so much about erasing the past, it's more about regaining agency in the present. If you feel like you're doing the work, but you still feel numb or distant or disconnected, you might not be stuck. You may simply be in the quiet middle stage of healing. The nervous system often heals silently before it heals emotionally. And sometimes the most powerful progress is happening in places you cannot even feel yet, like that little flower poking through the snow. I hope this has been helpful for you. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.